you know what I have here?
That would be a tiny little box that's roughly half the size of a PS4.
Roughly, yeah. More specifically, it's the Alienware Alpha.
Okay. So this was their Steam machine, right? But now it's just a machine?
It's just a machine.
It's just a machine.
Yeah, I mean, most people would say it's a tiny PC from Alienware that plays Steam games, and it's pretty inexpensive. What Alienware says is that this is a console. And so I was curious how you felt about that, because that's a console.
That's a console.
That's a PC.
This is an even bigger PC. Oh God. Oh.
Jesus. All right, but the fact is, right? I mean, people usually think of consoles because they're small devices that hook up to your TV. You play games with a controller predominantly. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with this.
Yeah.
Would you call this a console?
I mean, no, I wouldn't, because like when I think of console, I think of like a closed ecosystem that's run by one platform holder, and everything is very specific to them. This is a PC. It's a tiny PC, but like PCs have been getting smaller and smaller for years now.
So the only thing that differentiates between these two things is the closed ecosystem.
Yeah, I would probably say so. I mean, what do you think? Does that?
I mean, I kind of see that the lines have been blurred at this point. Like, yeah, the ecosystems are different, but let's be honest. Both of these things play games. You can use a controller, hook it up to your TV. They're both easy to use. This has a user interface when you turn it on. If you have a mouse and keyboard hooked up, you can go into desktop mode. But with just a controller, it goes into Alienware's proprietary user interface. Control everything with a controller. And if you actually want to get specific about it, it really only supports Steam through that controller interface. If you try to do Origin or Uplay, you have to actually use a mouse and keyboard. So in a sense, if you want to consider a Steam machine still, that's still sort of a closed ecosystem. Just with the possibility to open it up once you do, I guess, turn it into a PC. So maybe in that sense, it's a mix of console and PC. But Alienware is pretty stern about the fact that this is a console. It's like they're trying to break into that market, but I don't know if just calling it that is going to be enough to convince console users that this is something they should be interested in.
Right. Well, I guess, so at this point in time, like, why does somebody choose a console over a PC these days? Do they do it for simplicity? Do they do it for convenience?
Exclusives.
Exclusives, yeah, that's true.
Maybe brand loyalty.
Yeah. I guess probably the biggest differentiator is price, right?
Yeah.
Consoles, you still get a relatively subsidized device compared to like a PC like this Aurora, which, how much does that retail for?
Too much money.
Too much money.
Well, too much of my money. I couldn't afford it. It's very expensive. This guy starts at just around $550, and that includes a Intel Core i3 at 2 gigahertz, 4 gigs of DDR3 RAM, and the equivalent of a souped-up GTX 860M mobile GPU.
It's pretty good.
It's really not bad.
Yeah.
And actually what you can do is you can open this up, you can install a new CPU that's not hardwired to the motherboard, so you can just pop off the fan and the little gate and then input a new one. You can upgrade the RAM, you can upgrade the hard drive to an SSD. The only thing you can't really change is the GPU, which is hardwired onto the motherboard.
Okay.
Yeah, but you do have access to, I mean, thousands of additional games, right, that you wouldn't get with a console. So that is another thing worth considering. Kind of like the Xbox One, it also has HDMI in and out, so you can pass through your cable box, which, that's a pretty minor feature in my book. But yeah, I think it's curious that Alienware is so adamant to call this a console, because to me, it's sort of hard to define it one way or the other. It's nebulous at this point. Yeah,
I mean, at a certain point, you're just arguing semantics, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, like, the lines have blurred so much that it's hard to really even tell the difference anymore. At a certain point, all you have to really consider is just value to the consumer. Like, how do games run on this compared to like a similar game on the PS4?
So just with the stock base hardware, I decided to throw Shadows of Mordor on there and run it at full blast at 1080p. And there were moments where it would sort of hiccup and run a little slowly, as you'd expect given the hardware on the inside. But I was pretty surprised to see that it did run at a really decent clip, easily above 30 frames per second, during a lot of sequences. And that included, yes, the opening intro, which is a small space. But then also when I broke out into the first few sections of the game where you have a big part of Middle-earth, like it's still running really well. So it's a pretty powerful thing. Alienware is claiming the base model can run Assassin's Creed 4 at max settings, which I have yet to test, but that's a really bold claim.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, we're going to be running this, through the gamut of tests. We're going to be throwing all the new games at it and see what it can do. I threw Crysis 3 on there at max settings. That did not go above, I think, 8 frames per second. But that's not a surprise.
Well, at the end of the day, you can still watch YouTube videos of cats, right? And so
yeah.
that's
Oh, yeah.
really what makes it a PC.
Yeah, definitely.